Training Peaks is the complete training ecosystem for professional coaches and motivated athletes. Access comprehensive data analysis, integrated strength, and Training Peaks Virtual, included with Premium, to track every watt with precision. As the trusted operating system for the world's elite coaches, our platform provides the ultimate athlete-coach connection. Start your season by finding an expert coach or a data-driven training plan on the platform built for progress. Go to trainingpeaks.com to start your journey today. That's trainingpeaks.com.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slowtwitch podcast. We have the gang together again. The boys are back in town. I'm here today with, my name's Kevin McKinnon. I'm here with Eric Wynn and Ben Snyder-McGrath from Slowtwitch, and we're going to chat about some of the stuff that we've had going on this week and over the last couple of weeks, with all kinds of fun news coming down. So before we get rolling on that, where have you been hiding for the last bit, Eric? Ben and I have been doing a bunch of podcasts and haven't sort of meant to leave you out, but we have kind of left you out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people don't want to listen to me. They'd rather listen to you guys. It's a very, very true statement. No, just I've been, working on some bigger stuff with the site. We've just to kind of give you guys an update on that. We've got our directories finally relaunched again. So our classifieds have been moved over to a proper classified section. We've got a list of coaches. We've got a list of events. So that was stuff that was like, unfortunately, kind of taken down when we did the site redo, because it was all old and archaic. I mean, we had races listed on the site in 2023 that were from 2015 that hadn't been active in 10 years. And so we did kind of a big scrub, and then we, it just took us too long to get it redone, but we finally got that up. And so that was pretty exciting. And then I went on vacation with my family for 5 days, which was awesome. I actually got like a day and a half off, which was pretty cool. And then I got home that Monday night, and then the following morning I took off and drove to Sea Otter for a week.
Well,
so
perfect segue into Sea Otter. I feel like actually, Eric, if you wouldn't mind, I think we should start with, I think lots of people are familiar with Sea Otter, but until last year, I had never actually made it there. So I think it would be helpful to just start with, just a description of what Sea Otter is and what it's all about. And then maybe you can tell us about some of the cool stuff that you saw at this year's event.
Yeah. So Sea Otter has become like the gathering part of the industry over the last 10, 15 years from a vendor standpoint. But its roots have been that that's a huge, essentially it's a huge bike festival surrounded by a bunch of races, and particularly a lot of mountain bike races. And so it's usually a 4-day expo festival. It's held in at the Laguna Race Speedway in just outside of Carmel. So it's in California. And then we've got, let's see here. I mean, it's one of those things that like you, Kevin, I had heard about it for a long time, and I thought I got like my arms wrapped around what it was. And then I went there and it was like, holy shit, this thing's really big. Because there's 1,000 vendors. And they're not like small vendors. Like they're like a 10 by 10, obviously, like there's a lot of 10 by 10s, but there's also a lot of like 20 by 80s and 40 by 80s and 20 by 120. Like they're big expo booths. And so it's this massive infield of just all sorts of, bike vendors from the industry. And then during the entire, course of the 4 days, there's a total of 14 different discipline races that are going on. And so you've got this combination of people walking around looking at every single bike brand and thing for sale known to man in the industry that has to do with two wheels. And then you've got this announcer that's going from 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, talking about all of these different races that are going on throughout the day and the results. And so you've got grand fondos going on, and at the same time, you've got downhill mountain biking events going on. Um, so, Lifetime bought it. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, and so it's kind of become like the kickoff of the Grand Prix. So it's like the first big pro event for the year. And 2 years ago, they changed it from the mountain bike event into a gravel event. So it's one of like the only completely closed courses of the series as well.
Hmm.
And so it's awesome. I've been going for 5 years now. Don't have any plans on stopping to go. There's 15 different campgrounds. And so you've got probably 10,000 people camping over this huge area of fields. And it's just this huge, massive gathering of people that love bikes. And it's super cool to go. It's an absolute pain in the butt from a timing perspective because it's right around like spring break, and my family has like no desire to go whatsoever. And so we usually have to kind of work around where it's either we take our spring break before or after, and then I head to Sea Otter. Um, but it's pretty invaluable for me to go just to kind of get a pulse on the industry as a whole, because it really is kind of a foreshadowing of what is to come when it comes to where brands are putting in their effort into marketing and products. And there's a lot of product launches that happen at Sea Otter. This, and that's kind of changed a little bit over the last couple of years because of product delays with manufacturing and tariffs and all that kind of stuff. So this year, while there wasn't a lot of actual products that were launched, there was a lot of products that were talked about that are going to be launched in the next 30 days. So
Mm.
I met with a lot of brands to listen to the stuff that they were getting ready to launch. And there's a lot of cool wheels in the industry that are getting ready to be launched. There's a lot of cool frames that are getting ready to be launched, and so we're looking forward to getting our hands on all that stuff and testing it out so we can do reviews starting pretty much May 1st through like the middle of June. I would say there's probably 12 to 15 really good product launches between a bunch of different companies. So that was pretty rad.
So what were some of the highlights or, some of the products that you sort of saw there that were cool for you or the highlights for you?
Yeah. So our audience would probably understand, some of the things that I was really happy to see. Stages is a brand that is really well known in triathlon, and of course they, unfortunately closed their doors a couple of years ago, and Giant ended up going in and buying them out of bankruptcy. But they were there and they're active. So their doors are open and they are manufacturing power meters again. And
Okay.
they're getting their arms wrapped around, their indoor life cycle studio, indoor cycling machines, and being able to service the customers, for the indoor cycling community, which, you know, in hindsight, a lot of that is Lifetime, because I think Lifetime probably most of their gyms had stages cycling, machines in all of their indoor gyms. So it was good to actually meet the brand manager there, and get kind of an idea of what is going on with that, and just I've got an article that I'll be writing in the next week or so. I got a couple more questions for him, but where our current customer base, or I should say, our community, can know where they can go from a stage's perspective on any warranty issues that they still might have, or products they still want to buy and things like that. So they're not fully 100% open. Like right now, I can't take a bare crank and send it in to them and have them redo it. But they do have cranks for sale with power meters on it. Um, which I thought that was kind of weird. I was like, why can't you? And he's just like, we just haven't figured out the process of collecting all of the stuff, getting it done, being able to, manage where that product is, and then being able to get it back to the customer. And so, it's just those all things they just get lost because, when a company obviously shuts down, you hope to get as many people that know how to run the company back to employment. But at the same time, a lot of those people left and they never came back, and they were the only ones that really knew how to do it. And, systems were lost, and, they were not necessarily, accounted over to the new person that bought it. They might have been sold and, and to pay off other debt and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And that kind of takes me into the next company was,
Well,
was
actually,
Mavic.
sorry, just before, if I
Sure.
could, um, is there, how hard is it going to be for stages to come back when you've got 4i who have taken everything the stages used to do and are knocking it out of the ballpark right now?
Uh, uh, Pretty easy. You- We
Okay.
have so we have to understand a couple of things. Number one, um, most of Stage's business isn't power meters like 4i is, right? Because 4i does an amazing
Okay.
job with that.
Yeah.
That's probably, and I'm totally spitballing here, 10-15% of Stage's business. Most
Okay.
of their business is commercial sales with indoor cycling bikes, which
Got it.
is why they got into the power meter program to begin with, was because they had to produce power meter on those indoor cycling bikes. And so they learned how to Dremel out Shimano aluminum cranks and put their power meter into those as a second source of income. And so, most of their business is commercial indoor cycling bikes, and so that's really where their big focus is. And their power meter business is, I would say, very secondary to that.
Got it.
Yeah,
Sorry, that thank you.
yeah.
Um, Off you
And
go on
they're
to
and
the
they're backed by
next.
Giant, right? So,
Yes.
which is the arguably the largest manufacturer of bikes in the world. And
Right.
so they've got pretty solid pockets to help them slowly get back into it. So, um, and then the other one that was cool to see that was back was Mavic wheels. Um, they had a 10 by 20 booth, and I met the three people that work in the US office for Mavic, and had a really great catch up with the brand manager Justin over there, and just getting to know him and understanding like how they had come back from the bankruptcy and the buyout, and like just learning the difficulties that they had. Like all of a sudden, they didn't have jobs, and then like a year later they had their jobs back again, but 80% of the company wasn't there, and there was absolutely no records of anything. They lost all of the data on their dealers, like all of the data on their past sales, all of that stuff. So it was like completely start over from scratch. So at one point where they had a list of, 5 to 6,000 dealers, they had zero, like no records of anything. And so it was like they kind of started up business again and kind of just waited for people to reach out mad about something, and started taking down names, right, and building up their dealer network again. And they've got some really cool products that they have, not only brought back and kind of polished up a little bit, but also some really good wheels that are coming up that obviously, one of the things with Mavic is I think they were the last ones on the totem pole to, stay with like a 17 millimeter internal rim for a while. And then, they branched out and it was like a 19 millimeter internal rim. And so now you're starting to see stuff that's coming out in the 23, 25 millimeter rim depth, and just really nice polished, carbon wheels that are, where they need to be. So, um, those are like the two things that I think our industry would be happy to hear that are back and supporting what we do. Um, Overall, the thoughts on Sea Otter were, you had your normal suspects of big brands with big presence, right? Specialized had a big presence. Fox, the shock company, had a big presence. Shimano had a big presence. Bosch, that does most of the e-bike engines out there, had a big presence. SRAM had like a really small presence. They usually, down this aisle way had like two 20 by 60, booth spaces. And I think they might had a 20 by 20, maybe a 20 by 40.
Okay.
And, you know, they're doing really well in the industry. And I think at the end of the day, with talking to one of the guys there, they were just like, you have a lot of booth space. It requires a lot of bodies, and it requires people to not, they have to find the products. And so we went with a smaller, layout so that we could have better interaction with the customers that were actually interested in learning about the product. And so, but it was still, I don't know if that's necessarily true. But that's what they claim. And, but it was weird walking down the hallway and being like, oh yeah, like they're not there. And then other brands too, like Pinarella had like a 10 by 10. They had like this beautiful 20 by 40 setup at Sea Otter, Pinarella USA. And so, they had a lot of bikes on display, and that was really cool. Um, and then the other big thing is there was a lot of direct factory manufacturers from Taiwan and China that had really big presence at Sea
Yes.
Otter this year, more so than I'm trying to think of like how much, probably twice the amount of footprint than I saw last year. Uh,
Oh my goodness. Because last year I was blown away with the size of that. There were a lot of those companies there last year.
yeah,
Now, they had small booths last year. Like that was the thing I noticed with all of that. It was, you walked through, there were a lot of companies represented, but they were very small, you know?
yeah, and so obviously there's still a couple 10 by 10s, but most of them had 10 by 20s, 10 by 40s.
Oh, interesting.
XLab, the bike manufacturer, not the component manufacturer that our industry is used to, but XLab bikes had a huge presence. They're the same bike brand that Astana right now, and I've got an article that's coming out about it, so I won't do a whole lot of you know uh, talking, but they had a massive floor plan footprint, I should say, and did really nice bikes. And they're not direct to consumer; they're going in the United States through dealers,
Huh.
and the prices are really going to disrupt the industry with that. You definitely need to go. It's awesome. The one thing that, and I've got to say this too, is the only bone that I have to pick with them is I don't know why the paddocked. So it's like, it's where we camp every year, but it's the big campground that's right by the actual venue itself. Um, but the expo doesn't end until Sunday at 2, which means, if you want to be a vendor and you want to stay, you can't really get your stuff until like 4. Um, because 2 o'clock is when it ends. They don't really start letting vendors in until like 3. And then it's just this mad rush of everybody trying to get the fuck out of there because they're all tired. But they close down the paddock at 2 o'clock on Sunday, 2 to 3. Every single year it changes. And so we're always stuck with this thing where it's like, well, this is where we're camping. This is where all of our stuff goes. But I can't get my stuff until 4, but you're kicking me out of here at 2. So I just wish they would figure that out, because there's a lot of people that camp there and we're always in the same position where it's like, all right, like somebody's taking over the track tomorrow. So, they're like, get out. And we're like, but our stuff is there. What do we do? So
Yeah, last year I rode my bike right after all of that, and I could not believe the line of
oh yeah.
cars trying to get out of there. It was insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
like
ended up,
you're not kidding with the 10,000 people. I'm not sure what the total numbers of people who attend that weekend, but there's a lot of people.
well, so they claim that it's 70 to 80,000 people that come in for the 4 days. And I'd say it's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
I don't know if there was, that many people this year. Um, it didn't seem like it was. I got mixed emotions or mixed opinions from different vendors. Some vendors said they've never seen it so busy. Other vendors said like, man, this is dead. So I felt like it was kind of the same, maybe a little bit less. But things from which makes a lot of sense from just the economy standpoint. And also they have changed the pro race from, it used to be on Saturday. Now they do it Thursday. And so I think a lot of less people probably show up to a Thursday to watch versus Saturday.
right.
But overall, like it gave me more invigorated hope of the bike industry as well, and just kind of where it's going. And then also just this continued merger of endurance events as a whole. Because, one of the things that they did this year was they added a trail run, and they had 700 people show up to it. And it
Hmm.
was a legit 17K trail run that was in the hills of Monterey. It was not easy, and they had a great showing for it. And all the kids events were just packed. All of the kid
Yeah.
bike races that we watched were just, and even more so than last year, Kevin. Like they were just stacked on stacked on stack. And so it's just really cool to see, the grassroots programs like NICA and all these regional stuff that's starting to come in and really get youth involved into the sport, and getting, trail runners to, come and see, the bike industry, and get the bike industry used to, trail runners
Trail
rocking
run.
around
Yeah.
and, different types of spandex and, backpacks and, like, and so it's just this big festival of endurance junkies, and it was pretty awesome.
Well, I think that, yeah, that whole festival mindset, that's what everyone's trying to go for, unless you're Ironman. We're going to start talking about Ironman Texas momentarily, but yeah, like everyone else is realizing we got to do a festival if we want big numbers.
Yeah, and it is just a reminder too of like kind of how small triathlon can be at times. Like, I mean, it's just like you're at this essentially this mountain bike festival, and it's huge. I mean, it even
Yeah.
makes Roth look like this tiny little thing that happens in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's massive. And I think we sometimes, like, you go to like the biggest booths at like 70.3 Worlds, like the Hoka booth, and everyone's there. They're like, oh my gosh, the Hoka booth, it's so amazing, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, it's just an average size booth at Sea Otter. Like, No big
Oh
deal.
yeah. There's there's no comparison in my mind between the expos that you see at any Ironman events, including the World Championships, and even Roth. Like the Roth Expo dwarfs the Ironman ones
Yeah.
by a ton. Um, and yeah, and I hadn't really thought of yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much bigger Sea Otter is than Roth. It's, obviously a lot bigger, but is it twice the size, do you think?
From a footprint standpoint,
Yeah,
oh,
because Roth is kind of spread out.
I'd say like, well, okay. So how many vendors does Roth claim that they get?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea on that front.
Because
Yeah, now
just
that you're saying this, I don't think it's even close.
well, so just visualizing it in my head, because I've flown a drone over the Roth Expo, and it dwarfs a lot of Ironman stuff. But Sea Otter, probably 4 or 5 times the size from a
Yeah.
space perspective.
Yep. No, now that you're saying that, I'm thinking when I was shooting the gravel race last year, I walked up to the top of the hill and got some shots
Yeah.
of the whole thing. And now that you're saying all of that, I'm thinking of that aerial view of Sea Otter. Yeah. Well, and you think about, Sea Otter has replaced pretty much any other bike expo in the United States now. So it's pretty big.
Yeah, and apparently there's a Sea Otter Europe in Girona. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, Nick at Wove was talking to me about that. And that was pretty, like, makes me want to go check that out. He said there's not as many vendors, and everybody's like hardly anybody speaks English. And so he had to like spend most of his day on the phone with like Google Translate, like trying to talk to customers. Um, but he said it was just as cool as and he said it was a lot better than like Europe Interbike. So
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
I think there's one in Australia as well.
oh really?
Okay.
Yeah. So you can I'll go for us to Australia if you want to send me to
Oh good.
I definitely want to be on that trip too. So
yeah.
I love that. That would be very cool. Although Girona, I've never been to Girona, so that would be a good excuse to get there too. Um, unless you have anything else on Sea Otter, Eric, I'll maybe move on and chat about Ironman Texas. So yeah, like um I don't know if I had to make the choice, but we sort of had to divide and conquer last weekend in terms of Sea Otter and Ironman Texas the same weekend. So I ended up there. First time I'd been back to Texas, I think since either 2014 or 2015, which was quite funny because everyone was like, "What? You haven't been here for this long?" Um,
That is a
but
long time for you.
it is for a major event, and I don't know why it just hadn't worked out for me to get back there. But after I stopped working at Ironman, I didn't need to be there every year. And this year's event, we talked about this to the nth degree on the site about it being the next biggest thing to Kona. Or to a world championship that we'd seen in an Ironman field. And Patrick Lange stood up sat down at the press conference and pretty much said the same thing, hands down, strongest field ever seen outside of a world championship. Um, and it all came through on the men's side for sure. Um, the men's race was insane, in terms of I can't remember, what was it, yeah, you had to go 7:33 or faster to make prize money. So you go 7:33 at an Ironman race and you earn $2,000, right? Like, it was mind-boggling how quick those guys were going. And good old Christian Blummenfelt, uh, that is just crazy. He pukes his guts out in New Zealand. The word was that he was sick going into that one, and comes sixth. and then just dominates everything else that he's done since then. And um, it is
Did he
just
throw up a lot
crazy.
at the end?
After he came across the line,
Yes.
yep.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
I sort of got one shot of of that, and then I just was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to keep on going here. Like it, yeah,
We're
they
gonna
kept
overlay
walking
that
over.
in this video here. Yeah.
They kept they kept walking over to try and interview him, and he was like, oh, yeah, so
I don't know why that makes me feel better, because when he was running at like mile 18 or 19, like he was running so fast and he was just taking in stuff, and you can tell when Christian has a lot of stuff in his stomach, right? Like you can, if you know him well, you're just like, oh. And I was texting a couple buddies, I'm like he's gonna puke here in just a second. And then he didn't. I was like, oh man, like I was wrong.
no,
And
but
then
when he
later,
did,
yeah.
when he did, it was quite something, man. But they cleaned it up rather quickly, and yeah, he bounced back in no time. And 2:30:47. You know, yes, I know people have gone quicker in that. 2:26 was a Messias who ran
Yeah.
2:26 in Brazil
Mhm.
last year, but just um just crazy. And Martin Van Riel taking it to him the entire way. Um yeah, so I think people can go and read the results and all that kind of stuff. Casper Storns looking super solid to come third. And I asked Casper after the race about when I had talked to them all. I followed the guys on a training ride in Lanzarote in February, and chatted with them afterwards. And Casper was that calf injury was quite something, and Christian was dealing with the calf injury too. But I kind of said to Casper, "Seems like you're all through that," and he was like, "Yeah, but I feel like I've made the right call." And so, and I mentioned this to Christian afterwards too. Of are the guys going to play along? You won. If you go ahead and win all the big races through the year, are they going to say, okay, Christian gets to win Kona as well? Because it just doesn't seem fair. but, um, but yeah, I, I hope Christian says that he's timing everything and planning for Kona is the big one, and all that stuff. But you just have this feeling that Casper was like, I'm really happy with where I'm at now. I'm quite happy to let things build up to another level in October. Um, and Christian is firing at a whole nother level than everyone right now. So for Martin Van Riel to push him right to the edge the way he did, that says a lot right there. Casper, and who else was in that mix? So um, you've got Vincent Louis, scary, because Vincent's got to be turning 40 soon. If like he's 39 or 40, but looks
I was
fantastic. Sorry.
36.
Oh, oh wow! I gave him.
Maybe he's
What?
turning 37. Maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Hopefully, he's not
I'm
listening to
thinking.
this.
Yes, I'm thinking of our interview last year when he was talking about being old. That
Yeah.
must be it. So, um, anyway, he did not look old. He looked fantastic. Rudy von Berg, best he's looked in a good year or
Mhm.
so. So that was fantastic. And then the big surprise of the day, but not so much to you, Ben, was Brock Howell from Canada. And so, Ben reached out to me 2 weeks ago and said, "Hey, I think we should do a feature on Brock Howell." And I said, "Let's wait until Texas and see how it goes." And I totally blew it. We should have been ahead of the game and gone on that. So, what was it, Ben, that you figured Brock Howell was gonna, that he was gonna have this day?
Well, when Eric and I were in Arizona, that was his first Ironman, and he went 7:52. And I mean, I know 7:52 is like not I mean, obviously it's crazy, but like, 10 years ago, a 752 was wilder. But still, I just thought like Ironman debut, he just didn't seem phased by the distance at all. And then he was racing in Oceanside and was up near the front. And then he got either in a crash or a puncture or something, and
I think
finished well back.
crash.
But and I mean, I know that like it's not easy, but it's easier to be up at the front in the after the swim and some of the bike. But he just seemed like he's like a good fit for longer distance racing. So I was just thinking, I didn't think he's going to drop a 729. That's insane.
Ben's spidey senses just
Yeah.
told him.
Yeah.
that
Also,
he was
I'm
done.
glad that I said this out loud, because in Nice, multiple people asked me who do you think's going to win, and I said Casper to a couple people, but I didn't say it out loud. Like I didn't write about it or anything. And I remember people gave me looks. They were like, "What?" Like they thought I was crazy. And then he won, and I should have been telling more people. I should have been writing it. So I'm glad, at least, Kevin, that I got it.
Yeah, no, hey, I was quick to put that on the record. And hey, people, like the last year that Maka won Kona, people told me I was out of my mind to put him on the cover of our September issue with a big story. And I was just like, because everyone's like, "There's no way Crowy's not going to win this race," and I'm like, I think this is, and so yeah, I totally hear you. Sometimes you gotta just go with the gut there.
Yeah.
I do definitely want to make sure that I speak about, take some time to talk about the women's race, because some interesting stuff there. But the one thing I did want to chat about was 20 meters makes no difference if you miss the train, folks. If you're 6 minutes back after the swim, you are not catching these guys.
Yeah.
End of story. So when I was out on the motorcycle, at one point I came up to the lead group, and people were trying to say, "Oh yeah, that lead group was getting all this help from the motos and all that stuff." There was one motorcycle up there. I was trying to get around it to get the heck out of the way. And the one thing I noticed was how hard those guys, when they were when they were switching places. So at one point we got caught behind myself and my moto driver got caught behind the coverage moto, and we couldn't get around. And all of a sudden I just hear Casper yelling, "On the left, get out of the way, on the left, I got out of the way." And he's like going nuts. And I look around, and it looks like he's in a sprint to finish on the Champs-Élysées at the Tour de France. Like he was going so hard to just get up and around. They fly, folks. And there were 30 of them doing all of that. Like there were, there's a big, basically 3 groups of like 10 to 15 up in front there. So 10 meters, 12 meters, 20 meters.
But isn't that the
doesn't matter.
argument of 20 meters, is that that lead group doesn't draft off of each other anymore, and so everybody in that lead group has to work just as hard as Lionel Sanders that's 10 minutes back?
I think that's part of the argument for sure. But now here's the one thing, and I had a brief conversation with Sam Long about all of this afterwards. And so here's my dilemma with all of this. So when I was in that position and sitting there, I could not believe how much the guys had to sit up, and like you'd hear that when everyone was stopping pedaling for a second, right? As you were going through. So it's that going back and forth is still happening at 20 meters. So, that's where I was like, to me, it was no different to 12. And so, and I don't know how you stretch it out any further. Like, that already, it was so hard to get up through that whole group. Like, there were, I don't know how many guys there were who came out of the water within a minute of each other, but felt like it was between 30 and 40. And so you put all of those people 20 meters apart, and it's a big, long line. And Christian, Casper, and Gustav were all like in the second group. And so for anyone to try and imply, like Christian was up at the front of that, Casper was up at the front of that, a ton of times, like working really hard. So they weren't sitting in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, you know, Lionel and Sam, they looked great when I went by them, but they weren't making up time on these guys, you know? So it's just, to me, the signal is out there. You got to swim, folks, at these big championship events. Otherwise, you're just not going to be in that mix. And then in terms of the women's race, um, a little bit of, is controversy the right word? You know, Kat Matthews gets the flat tire. I found it very interesting that, like,
So I don't agree with Mark that much. When he goes, you know, ballistic on things, but like Kat's husband, Mark, had the fact that the tech support didn't have a wheel with like 140 rotors is like, that's pretty bad.
Yes. Yeah. And so
I still think, I'm sorry, I still think that these people that are professional athletes, like, put a tube in your bike. I'm sorry, but like, put a tube in your bike. It's not that heavy. You've got the bikes with all the storage compartments. Like, put a latex tube in your bike. It probably wouldn't have helped Kat because, you know, she had a sidewall, but it would have helped Christian the 2 times that he got flats that led. It would have helped, you know, Taylor one year when she got a flat. Like, just put a tube in your bike. It weighs the same as a gel. Like, it's not that heavy. Like a latex tube, just put it in your bike.
Yeah, and Eric, you are so bang on with that. So I guess what I was trying to say was all of that. So was, it drives me nuts that people don't have the tubes. And as you say, in Kat's case, it probably wouldn't have made any difference. But the fact that she didn't even have anything is what you know, like, it is just so crazy to
Well,
me.
in the mindset of like, no, I'm a professional athlete. I'm going too fast. I can't have a fucking spare tire in my like what? Why? Like,
No, I
okay,
think
well
the
then
mindset.
don't. Like,
I think the
you will
mindset is
100%
that.
lose.
I think the mindset is that it'll take too long to fix, and you're basically out of things.
It
But
takes 2 minutes to fix a flat if you know what you're doing.
if you know what you're
Like,
doing,
yeah,
yeah,
like,
absolutely. Hey, I had to switch flats in a few races back in the dark ages when I raced on tubulars, and ripped them off, threw the other one on,
yeah.
used a quick fill, and off I went. Right. So it 100% can be done. And I hear what they're saying, but this dependence on tech support is, I just wonder where we're at with all of that. And I'm from the old school where, hey, we were supposed to do all of this by ourselves. And things are changing now, and they want to make it more like bike racing, where you have that stuff. And so, to your point, Mark, or to your point, Eric, Mark has an excellent point. If you're going to have this tech support, at least make sure they have all of the right wheels.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, I know.
it's just like, that makes absolutely no sense. So anyway, very interesting, and that changed the dynamics of the race dramatically. Taylor Knibb and I had this conversation with her afterwards. I said, I came up next to you and you had talked about, I'm going easy. I'm not going to be pushing things as hard on the bike. The only goal is running sub 3. And when I got up next to her, I was like, I don't know if that's going easier. Like it looks pretty hard. And you said, I think it's just so hard for her to ease off. Like she just only knows. And she said afterwards, the thing was, when she was hitting those splits, she just started to get excited and got rolling. But I tell you, Solvay Løvseth, the days of me sort of writing, and I wrote about this in my wrap up story. There's always almost this asterisk to her winning Kona because Taylor falls over with a little over a mile to go, and Lucy ends up keeling over in the energy lab. But the thing we have to remember
which is such bullshit. Like that, there's that stigma behind it, right? Because it's
well,
like,
there isn't. But that's just. But at the end of the day, those guys were pushing so hard because they knew Solvay was coming. Now they probably weren't as worried about Solvay as they were worried about Cat Matthews, who ended up 32 seconds behind Solvay at the end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like Cat was the big mover on that day. But the bottom line was those people push the other folks to the limit. So Solvay, hands down the real deal. And yeah, these Norwegians, they've got things dialed in right now. They know what they are doing to a T. And Taylor Knibb got that sub 3 and more. Like she was thrilled with that 254. And so I think that bodes very well for her for Kona down the road. And it was fascinating talking to her afterwards because she was talking about just how difficult they've been struggling, her and her team, with the heat acclimatization and altitude training, and the two, and so and it's Taylor, right? Like she overthinks, or she thinks everything to the nth degree, and goes through all of these details. So anyway, I feel like they're getting that stuff dialed in, and all of this bodes well for her for Kona. But
what about the
she's
other
gonna
women
move up to
in
another
the?
level to take
Yeah.
Solvay.
What about the other women in the race, Kevin?
Yeah, there was it was a 20-minute gap to
Yeah.
Marta Sanchez afterwards. Like it was a 2-woman show.
I know.
The
So
front of
there's
that
been a
deal.
lot of controversy around that, where like, there's been a lot of women in the back that are they're irritated because they're like, we're just as good. We're out there fighting. And then there was these knucklehead podcasts that were basically, who's coming up with the ideas that like, if there's that big of a gap, that an athlete should just quit for the Pro Series point system, and that they should like stop racing. And then, because like Sam Long even talked about it, where you get these athletes that are quote unquote going for the Pro Series win, and they have kind of an off day, or they're just not peaking in April or the end of March for the season, and they're right where they're supposed to be from a fitness perspective. They're just not like off the charts like some of the people that showed up to this event were. And it's this like idea like, oh, you should just quit because you're not going to maximize your points for the Pro Series win. Like, have you guys been watching some of that stuff?
People said, "Oh, I didn't hear that." That's
I have not seen that, but it is. So this is the big
I mean,
dilemma
it pissed Jackie Herring off so much that she decided to start her own podcast.
No, and this is the thing, right? Like, so you look at the rest of or some of the other women on So Marta Sanchez has won a bunch of Ironmans over the years, had a fantastic race. She was thrilled.
Yeah.
She went 8:31:06. Like, that's a fantastic time.
She beat her husband. Her husband has to do chores for a year at the house.
So, has an amazing race and comes third. Jackie Herring, I thought she had a fantastic race, and
So did
I had
she.
so much. I found it so much fun watching her and Grace Thack just running along together. Like, the two of them looked like they were out for a Sunday morning training run, and literally were having a conversation along the way, and Jackie Herring. I was so impressed with her run, 2:58:44 to finish things off. Grace Thack has another a fantastic full distance race. For years everyone had told her, you're going to be amazing at long distance stuff, and go figure, she's amazing at long distance stuff. Sarah Svensk, Hannah Berry, and Sarah was sixth, Hannah Berry was seventh. Jana Uderstad, who we did the photo shoot with in Kona last year, Ben. She was eighth. Kate Curran from Great Britain, ninth. Gabrielle Lumpkes. So I don't know that Kate has won an Ironman. I don't know that Jana has, but I'm pretty sure everyone else in that top 10 is an Ironman champion at some point along the way. So fantastic field. But in terms of people who were competing for the win, there were only two by the time that run started. And I don't think there's any shame in all of that.
Yeah.
That was just the realities of how that day went, it reminded me of when we waited, I think it was 38 minutes for second place in Kona one year when Daniela Reef set the record, and 38 minutes to Marinda Carfrae, three-time Ironman world champion. So just because people are way ahead on a day does not mean anyone else is lesser or anything like that, right? Like, it's that's just the way that day went. In Canada, Julianne White came second in Kona one year to Paula Nibby Fraser. I can't remember. It was like late 89 or late 80s or early 90s, and never appeared on the television coverage because she was a weak swimmer, worked her way up through the bike, and then had this great run, but was so far behind Paula, they couldn't send a camera back. So, this is what happens sometimes when you have these people having these amazing days. So, and the last thing I'll talk about, loved one. I had so much fun doing the bike shoots with our age group athletes. So, looking forward to doing that more. Hopefully the numbers make sense, and it makes sense for us to continue to do that stuff, because really fun to do. And then if I can direct people to anything from the whole Texas deal, go and read my story on Patrice Brasindi, Quebec athlete, 55, literally given 5 years to live 5 years ago. And basically, because he's on these cancer treatments every month, he loses a week of training every month to recover from the injections and all of the pain in his back and everything. And so long distance training is just becoming so hard for him to do. So this is this was the last year he wants to try and do long distance stuff, really wanted to try and get to Kona, and killed it in his 55 to 59 age group, won that, and had a fantastic day, and just truly inspirational guy. So great story to read. I'm a little biased. I wrote it, so what can I say?
Ben, what do we got coming up this weekend?
Tonight is Singapore T100. So I think the biggest story it's a men's only race, pro race. The biggest story is Hayden Wilde and Matt
I gotta
Hauser.
I got to get this podcast edited today. Get it out.
You will, absolutely.
But yeah, Hayden versus Hauser. I mean, Hayden's the guy to beat at for the foreseeable future in T100 until somebody else knocks him off. Because like last year, he lost one T100 race that he entered, and that was there's an asterisk there because
quotes around that one.
Yeah, he was leading the bike everybody knows he was leading the bike, and then he had the fastest run. So if he had gotten off the bike at the right time, he would have won that race as well.
Yeah, it's the race he
then,
learned how to count. It was a big day for him.
Yeah. And Matt Hauser, he was not perfect in WTCS racing last year, but he was pretty. He crushed everybody in the series standings. I think he raced. I have it here. He raced 7 times, won 4, finished second. Yeah, 7 WTCS races, won 4, finished second, and another 2. So he's never finished a middle distance race. He raced in Geelong last year, but had a mechanical issue. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how he fares if he can make the jump up seemingly seamlessly as Hayden did. But yeah, it'll be a fun race to see them racing. And then also Mika Newt. I can't remember how to pronounce
Mika Newt, I think.
Just
is
Newt.
Yeah.
Mika Newt. He has finished second so many times in the T100 or third, and it must be frustrating to be like so consistent, but then Hayden's also so consistent and a bit faster.
Yeah, he's the Hunter Kemper of 2026.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. I wrote an article, like the preview article, and he has his worst races in his T100 in the past 2 years in T100 racing have come in Singapore. So I don't know if
I think Mika struggles a bit in the heat and humidity, and Singapore is very hot and very humid. So.
Yeah, so we'll see if he can get that win or I don't know. I think it's probably Hayden and Mika might. Has there he can get a podium because
has there been any like crazy like things that have come up about like water temperatures and water quality issues like they've kind of like dealt with in the past? Like some of the drama around like the water swims at Singapore have been
good question.
I haven't seen anything on that front, but normally that's it's the same. Like with World Triathlon Championship Series races, the Yokohama water was notoriously awful, and they even the athletes wouldn't really talk about the fact that they were taking antibiotics ahead of time going
afterwards.
into the race. Just to and it was funny because somebody asked Taylor, I was standing around before the press conference, and somebody asked Taylor, "Oh, did you do the practice swim?" This was in Texas last week, and she just kind of went, "What, go in that water ahead of time when I don't have to?" No. And so yeah, it's and hey, I was at the Olympics a couple of years ago and saw all of that stuff around the Seine, and it's I don't know that we're going to hear a whole lot of that ahead of time because people just don't want to.
Yeah, but we have in the past. I mean, T100 is really good at selling the drama of things, and so in the past, like they're the ones that have talked about it, not necessarily the athletes. But yeah, so I was just curious.
Yeah, you see on this one, because that's not one that I would want to be trying to sell the drama around, because what are your options?
It's all about the clicks, man. It's about the clicks.
Well, it looks bad when you're basically hyping the fact that you really should be canceling the swim.
It's the challenge, Kevin. It's the challenge. Can Sam Long survive the swim?
Oh,
at the
there we go.
T100
Staying that extra
Singapore
little
event.
bit in the water.
It will be
So,
it'll be fun to watch the cool down, the like the things that they do as soon as they get out of transition, like, or go into transition. So like the hot races, it's always funny to see like what athletes do to try to cool themselves down. So like
Yeah.
last year you would see, guys come in and they would just have like their TT helmets just full of ice, and like they were throwing it on their head, and like, like sometimes the ice would melt and get stuck into a block. And so you got people like beat the shit out of their aero helmets trying to get the ice off so they could put it on. And so,
yeah.
I mean, that happened to
Yeah.
Kat at Kona last year. Like she put ice in
Yeah.
her helmet before and it melted and then it froze to her helmet. And so when she was coming out of the swim, she was like beating the heck out of her helmet to like be able to put it on to get it out. And so,
Yeah.
Well, and I think the T100 preview sort of rolls right into WTCS Samarkand, um, because it's one of the few times Matt Hauser won't be racing, and after the Abu Dhabi race, Abu Dhabi, right? WTCS Abu Dhabi got postponed, and it's not looking promising for that race to happen at all this year. Um, the it I found it interesting that Matt Hauser still stuck with his doing the T100 in Singapore after that being canceled, because it just makes life a little more complicated for him to defend his title to miss a WTCS race. So,
Yeah.
but almost the biggest story is the fact that he's not there, I think,
Yeah.
on that men's field.
Also, Alex Yee is not there. He was supposed to pace the London Marathon, but I believe the guy he was going to pace, he's out.
Oh, he's
So
injured. Oh, okay.
I don't know if he's still going to run it and pace someone else, but Alex isn't there either, which opens the
Right.
door for Miguel Hidalgo, Vasco Villaca.
Villaca.
Yeah.
Villaca.
They were
I think it is Villaca.
yeah.
And then Emmanuel, we talked about him, Messias, who had that super fast marathon last year in Brazil, 2:26. He's in there as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Um, on the women's side, Cassandra Beaugrand, Beth Potter, Jean Lahair typically races really well this time of year. And Gwen Jorgensen in that field as well. So Taylor Spivey, the other American.
And Lisa Tersch,
Oh,
defending
Lisa
champ.
Tersch. There we go. Yeah, defending champion. Whoops, I should have started with her. Oops. Thank you for catching up on that one for me. But yeah, it's funny, right? Because you think about Lisa, obviously great athlete, did super well, and everything, but won the world championship because Cassandra didn't finish and Beth Potter had a terrible race at the grand final. And that's Lisa Tersch can't control all of that, but another one of those crazy things that almost gets us into that same asterisk type deal that we were talking about with Solvay. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Lisa, if there's she has a lot of momentum and confidence from the win, because yeah, I don't have her results up from last year, but she was trucking along all season and just
for sure.
I don't know. Maybe she won Abu Dhabi actually, and I don't think she won again until the end. But maybe she'll come in and just be like, "Oh, I'm world champion, and I can crush whoever." That'll be interesting.
Yeah, and it was interesting talking to Cassandra last year. Coming out of the Olympics and winning the world championship in 2024. One of the things that she was kind of struggling with was if she didn't win a race, everyone would be all over it. Like, oh, what's wrong with you and all this stuff. And, she came second and second a couple of times last year and was couldn't understand why according to the rest of the world, this was the the end of the world type deal. And that's the one thing, with WTCS racing, especially, it's even when you have these people who are dominating. So you have, Matt Hauser last year, or, Alex Yee and Hayden and all of those guys. It just always feels like it's that much more competitive. It's almost like, the PGA, right? Like, when somebody's quote unquote dominating the PGA, they win 3 or 4 tournaments in a year, right? Like it's not like they win every single time. And so a lot more a wide open racing. All right. Well, I think that wraps up our podcast for the week. And thank you very much, Eric Wynn, Ben Snyder-McGrath. I'm Kevin McKinnon. Thank you so much for joining us here at Slowtwitch.
This episode is brought to you by Training Peaks. One platform, one price. Training Peaks is the complete training ecosystem for professional coaches and motivated athletes. Access comprehensive data analysis, integrated strength, and Training Peaks Virtual, included with Premium, to track every watt with precision. As the trusted operating system for the world's elite coaches, our platform provides the ultimate athlete-coach connection. Start your season by finding an expert coach or a data-driven training plan on the platform built for progress. Go to trainingpeaks.com to start your journey today. That's trainingpeaks.com.